22nd finals game, but he is not Chris Paul's favorite official, perhaps his least favorite. And Paul has talked about his team's poor record as Ayton misses when he's
This is Scott Foster, the biggest scumbag ref in the NBA, who was talking with Chris Paul right before Game 6 of the NBA Finals, telling him that despite having an 0-11 record versus Scott Foster, that Chris Paul is going to be okay and nothing suspicious is going to go on. The Phoenix Suns will go on to lose that game. Now, something that I'd like to note mentioning is that I am someone that doesn't like blaming referees. I think it's dumb, and honestly, it just makes you look like a loser. But Scott Foster isn't your normal referee. He's someone that is hated by a lot of players and a lot of people in general, and has a dark past that you may or may not know about, because it's gotten to the point when we find out who is officiating a certain game, and if Scott Foster's refereeing that game, we know which team is probably gonna win. I mean, I've literally seen the odds of a game change when we found out that Scott Foster was the ref. That is not normal. In this video, I want to talk about why Scott Foster is the biggest scumbag ref in the NBA and why he should be kicked out of the league. Also, a lot of people are probably gonna say that, oh, you're only doing this because you're a Suns fan, and that would be true if I didn't have multiple players and multiple evidence and even multiple stories regarding Scott Foster. Yes, Chris Paul and the Suns have a segment in this video, but that's not the main point. With all that out of the way, let's get into the video. Now, since the first person that a lot of people think about when it comes to Scott Foster is Chris Paul, let's talk about him first. For those of you that have no idea, Chris Paul is on a 14-game losing streak when games are refereed by Scott Foster. 14 games. If you want to get technical though, he has a record of 2-17 all time when refereed by Scott Foster. He's just currently on a 14-game losing streak that we have no idea when it's gonna end. Chris Paul has even talked about Scott Foster in a negative way publicly, and you start to wonder, is this actually true, or is this a really big rare coincidence? Well, I hate to break it to you, but 14 games is not a coincidence at this point. Now, regarding the first clip I showed at the beginning of the video of Scott Foster talking to Chris Paul right before the NBA Finals, it'd be a very big red flag. I've never seen a ref go up to a player and say, oh yeah, by the way, I know you have an 0-11 record versus me, but trust me, everything's going to be fine. I've never seen that happen. Why is he going up to Chris Paul right before the game and telling him that like he's not about to get them to lose Game 6? Also, here's another red flag that someone on Suns Twitter told me, but they said, why do we even know the name of Scott Foster? If we as NBA fans know about NBA referees and their names, then that should be a little bit suspicious. Unless we get some 20-year-old NBA referee that's a fucking TikTok dancer and is an e-boy, then we should not know their name. But the fact that we know his name and we also know that when Scott Foster is refereeing a Chris Paul game that they're probably gonna lose is a little too fucking suspicious. Now, before I get into Scott Foster's dark past, let's bring up one more player. Now, as much as I don't like James Harden, him and Scott Foster also have problems. But in fact, there's a stat out there that I don't even want to say because it makes me sick, but James Harden and Chris Paul are combined 1-27 in the playoffs when Scott Foster is the referee. And to make matters worse, the one game that they won between the two was a game where they had to play each other. And as far as I fucking know, you can't tie an NBA game, so that's why. This is some ballsack sports shit, but no, this is a legitimate source who said this. If this does not tell you enough about what happens when Scott Foster is refereeing a game, then I don't know what will. Because it's not just these two players that don't like Scott Foster. Many players have came out and said they don't like him, and some have even tried to fight him.
And Randall went over to talk to Scott Foster, and see Obi Toppin, the rookie, and Taj Gibson, the veteran.
Oh, shocking. He's a big... I said earlier on in the video that Scott Foster has a dark past, and I wasn't lying about that, and I need to tell you about it because it will make so much more sense why I don't like this guy and why he's probably rigging a lot of these games. But in order for me to tell you that story, we need to talk about another referee by the name of Tim Donaghy. Now, if you're my age, you may or may not know who Tim Donaghy is, so I'm just gonna sum it up. Tim Donaghy was a former NBA ref who ref 13 seasons from 1994 to 2007. It was in 2007 when Tim Donaghy would be caught in a gambling scandal where it was found out that he was refereeing a bunch of games to be fixed. The most famous game that he rigged was the Lakers and Kings Western Conference Finals game. You know, the most rigged series in NBA history. In fact, a lot of former players said they weren't surprised when they found out Tim Donaghy was in on rigging games. So you might be asking yourself, what does Tim Donaghy have to do with Scott Foster? I mean, you could say Tim Donaghy is the most famous ref in NBA history, but not for good reasons. Well, let's look at an interview of Tim Donaghy on the Pat McAfee show.
The first 15 games of the 2006-2007 NBA season that was refereed by you. had a significant enough betting to move the point spread by 1.5 points or more, and they were all perfect against Vegas.
Wait, what? By the way, this is my genuine reaction to what you guys just saw. I literally did not think this was in the interview. I was looking for another clip, but what the fuck? Wait, this is the same thing that Scott Foster does. Is that not a little suspicious? I literally said in the beginning of this video that when games would be refereed by Scott Foster, the odds would change because they knew what was gonna happen, which is literally the same shit that Tim Donaghy did. Also, something very important that I'd like to know is an article from a change.org about removing Scott Foster from the NBA. Now, these numbers I'm about to tell you, by the way, are 100% official. They've been confirmed by so many sources, so this isn't just someone trying to prove a point against Scott Foster. But in the article, it says the records show Donaghy placed 134 calls to referee Scott Foster. More than 126 of those calls made Donaghy to his bookie. I would like to also mention that Tim Donaghy has said there are so many referees in the NBA that have been rigging games during his time, but a lot of people said, oh, he's just mad that he lost his job. However, I'm starting not to think that it's just a disgraced ex-employee and this is someone with a point, because the next clip I have will shock you.
Absolutely. When you look at the NBA during the playoffs, they send a representative in and you watch the games, and when a team is down 3-0 in the series, they show you film of the previous 3 games and they tell you what to look for and what to concentrate on. And what they do is they program and train those referees to make calls for that team that's down in the series, so it doesn't become a sweep. It goes from 3-0 to 3-1, maybe 3-2, generates a lot more revenue and income for the entire league.
Wait, it's like I've almost seen this before. Yesterday, the Dallas Mavericks and the Utah Jazz played, and the Utah Jazz shot a whopping 42 free throws. And because of that, the Jazz have gone on to tie the series, so it is now 2-2. And in the Suns and Pelicans game, the Pelicans shot 42 free throws also. Not to mention, there were multiple missed calls in the game. So you might be saying, but Scott Foster didn't ref any of those games yesterday. Yes, but today he is reffing the Celtics and Nets game, which is why I'm going to tell you the outcome of this game right now. It is currently 10:14. This video is going to come out at noon, so the game will start 4 hours after the video has been released. But the Brooklyn Nets are going to win game 4, and there is a chance they could win game 5. The Celtics defense won't matter, and the Brooklyn Nets are going to shoot more than 30 free throws. However, Boston is still going to win the series, but it's going to be in 5 or 6. I promise you, even if Boston deserves it, they're not going to sweep the Nets. Oh, and for all my Suns fans, Scott Foster is not going to be refereeing game 5 of the Suns and Pelicans series. Now, as I'm recording this, Taylor Jenkins just got a $15,000 fine for speaking about the officiating. I also wouldn't be surprised if later on in the day, Monty Williams also gets a fine. So they make valid points about the game and the fact that the other team got 40 plus fucking free throws and you fine them for speaking out. Even Joel Embiid got a fine for talking about the officiating when the Sixers were gonna sweep the Raptors, but they didn't. It's almost like the NBA wants these series to go on so they can profit more money. Now, with all the evidence I provided you today, even if you don't like Chris Paul, even if you hate the Suns, if you're a Lakers fan or just whatever, if you've watched this entire video, does Scott Foster seem a little more dark and a little more secretive than we thought? Is the evidence I provided enough where if I was an FBI agent or someone that had a lot of power, I could get Scott Foster kicked out the NBA? And I want to remind you guys that the stuff I provided is stuff that I looked up on the internet, went through interviews and things of that nature. I have no sources or no one to tell me information from the inside. So imagine that there's someone in the inside of the NBA that does know what Scott Foster is doing. Do not be surprised if in 10 years we find out that Scott Foster did the same thing as Tim Donaghy, and we're all gonna be like, I told you so, I knew this was gonna happen. Mark my words, the day that does happen, even if I'm retired from YouTube, I'm gonna come back for that one day and put on a hat that says I told you so. I'm even gonna name that the title of the video, because I promise you, maybe not next year, not in 2 years, maybe not in 5 years, but eventually Scott Foster is going to get caught for his actions. Whether it's a leak or someone in the FBI already knows, but eventually it's going to happen. I mean, the fact that we as NBA fans, when we see Scott Foster's going to referee a game and we know the outcome, should be a little fucking concerning. What's always in the dark is eventually going to come into the light, and I think we are all going to see that. Because like I said earlier, just because I'm a YouTuber, just because I'm a 17-year-old kid, that is the only reason why this evidence isn't going to hold up. But I promise you, if someone with a lot of power or even the FBI and they had a little more evidence inside and they gathered this, it would be done. It's insane to me how we continue to let Scott Foster referee games that Chris Paul is in after we've seen the record, even with James Harden, even with just people in general when it comes to closing out series. So like I've said, do not be surprised if Scott Foster gets kicked out the NBA.